What happens when a late-night interview suddenly becomes one of the most talked-about television moments in America? The studio lights glowed brightly as the audience cheered wildly. Music echoed through the room, while Stephen Colbert smiled toward the stage. Then Vice President Kamala Harris walked out confidently, waving to the crowd. At first, it looked like a normal celebrity interview, but beneath the laughter and applause, there was tension in the air that nobody could ignore. And before this story gets even crazier, subscribe to the Truth Narrator, like this video, and comment below with your thoughts. Because tonight's story is about pressure, power, and a conversation that shocked millions. Colbert welcomed her warmly. "Madam Vice President, good to have you here." Kamala smiled politely. "It's good to be here, Stephen." The audience applauded again, but her face showed something deeper: exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but emotional pressure. The kind that comes from carrying the weight of an entire nation, while cameras follow your every move. The interview began with hurricane relief efforts. Kamala spoke seriously about families losing homes and communities struggling to survive. "There are people out there who have lost everything," she said firmly. The audience grew quiet. "But while families are suffering," she continued, "some people are spreading misinformation for political gain." The mood instantly changed. Colbert leaned forward. "You sound angry." Kamala paused for a moment before answering softly, "I am angry." The audience reacted immediately with loud applause. Her voice no longer sounded polished or rehearsed. It sounded real. Then Colbert asked a question that shifted the interview into something much bigger. "Do you think America is more divided now than ever?" The room fell silent. Kamala folded her hands carefully. "I think people are exhausted," she said quietly. "Exhausted by fear. Exhausted by chaos. Exhausted by constant outrage." The crowd clapped loudly, but others sat silently, listening closely, without directly naming Donald Trump. Everyone understood who she was talking about. Colbert smiled slightly. "That sounds aimed at somebody specific." Kamala tilted her head. "If the shoe fits." The audience exploded with laughter and cheers. But backstage, producers were already nervous. Clips from the interview were spreading across social media within minutes. News channels were preparing headlines before the segment had even ended, because this was no longer entertainment. It was becoming political warfare. Then Colbert asked something more personal. "How are you handling all this pressure?" For the first time, Kamala looked emotional. "You learn very quickly that leadership can feel lonely," she admitted. The audience became completely silent. There are moments when the weight becomes very heavy. Even Colbert stopped joking for a second. The conversation suddenly felt human instead of political. Millions watching at home saw someone struggling under enormous pressure while trying to stay strong in public. Then Colbert shifted toward the upcoming election. "Do you worry about where the country is heading?" Kamala's expression hardened immediately. "I worry about what happens when people stop caring about truth." A loud reaction swept through the crowd. Colbert carefully asked, "You really think democracy is at risk?" Kamala answered calmly, "Fear becomes dangerous when powerful people know how to use it." The audience erupted again. Online, the reaction became explosive. Supporters called her fearless. Critics accused her of turning comedy television into political propaganda. Social media feeds flooded with arguments within minutes. Then Colbert tried to lighten the mood by mentioning a viral debate moment. The audience laughed as Kamala smiled nervously. "What were you really thinking during that moment?" he asked jokingly. Kamala laughed. "This is family television, Stephen." The crowd burst into laughter again, finally releasing some of the tension. But before the commercial break, Colbert asked one final question. "If you could tell the American people one thing tonight, what would it be?" Kamala looked directly into the camera. The smile disappeared. The studio became completely silent. Then she spoke slowly. "Pay attention to the people who profit from your fear." For a moment, nobody moved. And in homes across America, millions watching the interview felt the exact same chill run through the room. Because everyone knew this conversation had just become something far bigger than television, and the fallout was only beginning. The applause slowly faded as the show returned from commercial break. But the atmosphere inside the studio had completely changed. What started as a normal late-night interview now felt tense, emotional, and unpredictable. Stephen Colbert looked toward Kamala Harris carefully. Even he seemed aware that every word spoken tonight was already spreading across social media. "You know people online are reacting to this interview in real time," he said with a small smile. Kamala laughed softly. "These days, people react before I even finish a sentence." The audience laughed, but the tension remained. Colbert leaned forward. "Does the constant criticism ever bother you?" Kamala paused before answering. "At some point," she said quietly. "You realize some people have already decided who you are before they even listen." The room became silent. "No matter what you say," she continued, "someone will twist it into anger or outrage." The audience reacted with applause. Then Colbert asked another difficult question. "You think social media is making America more divided?" Kamala gave a tired smile. "I think outrage has become entertainment." That line hit the audience hard. "People don't want calm conversations anymore," she continued. "Fear and anger get more attention." Backstage, producers watched clips from the interview go viral online. News channels were already replaying her strongest moments, while social media exploded with arguments. Some praised her honesty. Others accused her of turning a comedy show into politics. And the interview still wasn't over. Colbert shifted toward a more personal topic. "What's the hardest part being vice president?" Kamala looked down briefly. "The hardest part," she admitted softly, "is knowing millions of people are struggling, while also knowing no decision will ever make everyone happy." The audience listened carefully. "You get criticized constantly," she continued. "Too emotional, too cold, too strong, too weak." Then she said something that changed the mood completely. "After a while, you wonder if people even see you as human anymore." The audience went completely silent. Even Colbert looked surprised. For the first time that night, Kamala didn't sound like a politician. She sounded like someone carrying enormous pressure while the entire world judged every move she made. Then Colbert carefully brought up Donald Trump. "When your opponents attack you personally," he asked, "how do you respond?" Kamala smiled slightly. "You either spend your life reacting to chaos," she said calmly, "or you stay focused on why you started." The crowd applauded loudly. But suddenly, an audience member shouted from the crowd, "What about the economy?" The entire room froze. Some people booed, while others clapped nervously. Security immediately turned toward the audience section, but Kamala raised her hand. "No, it's okay," she said calmly. The audience member shouted again, "People are struggling." Kamala nodded slowly. "You're right," she answered firmly. "People are struggling." The tension in the room shifted instantly. "Families are worried about bills, rent, and their future," she continued. "Pretending otherwise would be dishonest." The audience erupted into applause. Even Colbert seemed impressed by how calmly she handled the confrontation. "You handle that well," he admitted. Kamala smiled slightly. "Leadership means listening even when it's uncomfortable." The crowd cheered loudly again. Online, the moment became the biggest clip of the night. Supporters called it powerful leadership. Critics called it political theater. News channels replayed the confrontation over and over again. Then Colbert asked one final question. "When history looks back at this moment, what do you hope people remember?" Kamala paused. The studio became completely silent. Then she looked directly into the camera. "I hope people remember that fear nearly tore this country apart." She stopped for a second, but truth mattered more. The audience immediately stood up, applauding louder than ever before. But outside the studio, the real storm was only beginning. By the next morning, the interview had completely taken over the internet. Clips from the show flooded social media feeds. News channels replayed the strongest moments nonstop, and millions of people argued over every sentence Kamala Harris had spoken. What was supposed to be a late-night television appearance had turned into a national confrontation. Some viewers called it one of the most honest interviews they had ever seen. Others called it dangerous political theater. And somewhere in the middle of all the noise, America seemed even more divided than before. Inside news studios across the country, analysts debated her words for hours. Fear nearly tore this country apart. That single line became the headline everywhere. Political commentators leaned forward under bright studio lights, arguing intensely over what she meant. Supporters praised her for speaking emotionally and directly. Critics accused her of attacking political opponents without naming them openly. Meanwhile, online, the chaos became unstoppable. Millions of posts appeared within hours. Hashtags began trending worldwide. Some users posted emotional messages defending her honesty. Others mocked the interview, turning clips into memes and reaction videos. And at the center of it all was one uncomfortable truth. People couldn't stop watching. Late that evening, cameras gathered outside television studios as reporters discussed the fallout. One reporter shook his head while speaking live on air. This interview wasn't just entertainment anymore, he said. It became a political flashpoint. Back inside her motorcade, Kamala Harris sat quietly beside her advisors while phone screens lit up nonstop around her. Headlines, reactions, poll numbers, criticism, support. One advisor finally broke the silence. Half the country thinks you were inspiring, he said carefully. The other half thinks you started a war. Kamala stared out the window, silently, at the flashing city lights. Then she spoke quietly. Maybe the war already existed. The car became silent. At the same time, Stephen Colbert was also dealing with the aftermath. Producers rushed through hallways while executives studied ratings, numbers climbing higher by the hour. The interview had become one of the biggest moments in late-night television that year. But not everyone inside the network was celebrating. Some worried the show had crossed a line between entertainment and politics. Others argued that the raw honesty was exactly why people connected to it. Even Colbert himself seemed shocked by how explosive the conversation had become. During a private backstage discussion, one producer asked him nervously, "Did you expect it to go this far?" Colbert shook his head slowly. "No," he admitted, "but I knew people were angry. I just didn't realize how badly they wanted someone to say it out loud." And that was the real reason the interview spread so quickly. It wasn't just politics. It was emotion, fear, anger, exhaustion, division. Millions of people saw pieces of themselves somewhere in that conversation. Some saw strength, others saw manipulation, but nobody saw something forgettable. Days later, the clips continued dominating social media. Every expression, every pause, every emotional moment became part of endless debates online. Then something unexpected happened. A short clip of Kamala answering the audience member about the economy suddenly exploded across the internet again, not because of politics, but because of her reaction. "You're right. People are struggling." That moment connected with viewers differently. Even some critics admitted the response felt human instead of scripted. And for a brief moment, the argument slowed down, not completely, but enough for people to actually listen. Meanwhile, protesters and supporters gathered outside political events carrying signs, shouting opinions, and arguing passionately about the interview. News helicopters captured crowds, chanting while reporters struggled to keep up with the nonstop reactions. America looked emotionally exhausted, exactly like Kamala had described. Late one night, after another exhausting day of headlines and interviews, Kamala reportedly sat alone, reviewing the reaction videos flooding the internet. Some praised her emotionally, others insulted her brutally. One clip showed viewers crying while discussing the interview. Another mocked every facial expression she made. The contrast was overwhelming. An aide quietly asked her, "Was it worth it?" Kamala didn't answer immediately. Finally, after a long silence, she spoke softly. "If people are finally talking honestly about what this country feels like," she paused, "then maybe it was..." And somewhere far away from the cameras, millions of ordinary people continued debating her words around dinner tables, workplaces, classrooms, and online comment sections. Because whether people supported her or hated her, the interview forced them to feel something. And in today's world, that might be the most powerful thing television can still do. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think this interview revealed the truth about America's growing division, or was it simply another political performance designed to control public opinion? Comment your thoughts below. And if you enjoy explosive, dramatic stories that take you deep inside the biggest celebrity and political moments in the world, Make sure you subscribe to the Truth Narrator, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next shocking story.